If I were to sign up for a course titled Literature and Ideas, the first question I would ask is, what are the ideas? Actually, I suppose if I were a student, the first question I would ask is, how hard do you grade? But once I got past that, I would want to know what ideas are going to be explored. There are two ways to respond to that. First, we will touch upon innumerable ideas in this course, and it's impossible to say which ones exactly because every course is different. Students are different, books are different, and discussions follow different paths. Having said that, however, there are certain ideas that permeate literature across centuries and across cultures. And virtually every book we read will explore these central ideas in one way or another. I started making a list, and when it got to 12, I thought, this is too long. So I chopped it down to 8, and here's what I came up with. First, to what degree are people products of their natures, and to what degree can they change their natures? Philosophers and thinkers have considered this question for centuries, and it is a central preoccupation of much literature. We all know that we're born with certain characteristics and personalities, and that those things in some measure define who we are. But we also know that we can, to some degree, alter those dispositions and personalities, but to what degree? And how much do circumstances affect our ability or inability to change? The literature we read this semester will be full of ideas about that. Second, to what degree do people shape events? To what degree do events shape people? How we view the world is in large measure determined by how we think about that question. Historians, philosophers, and writers have had very different ideas about that over the centuries. As we read this semester, we will keep bumping up against that question. Third, to what degree do appearances reflect reality, and to what degree do they not? This is a pretty deep question. Once again, how we view the world is in large measure determined by how we think about this question. Plato, writing in ancient Greece, felt that what we see is only a dim, imperfect reflection of true reality. More modern philosophers have seen a closer connection between reality and what we see. Great literary works explore this question in various ways and draw pretty different conclusions, as we will see. Fourth, the power of the past. Whether we know it or not, and whether we like it or not, the past is always with us. Now, sometimes this can be a very literal thing. Sometimes, for example, we might inherit a defective gene that has been passed down from our ancestors. And whether we're aware of that or not, its effect or its potential effect is still there. But more frequently, the past affects us in all kinds of subtle ways that we aren't even aware of, in traditions and in cultural conditioning, for example. And this idea of the power of the past is explored in much good literature. Fifth, a closely related idea is the power of memory, for both good and ill. In going through life, all of us inevitably accumulate baggage. Some of us accumulate more than others, depending upon our circumstances. And one of the things that determines whether or not we live well and contentedly, or whether we don't, is how we process the life baggage that we accumulate. Some people have a gift for dealing with this baggage, and other people don't. And whether we do or whether we don't has a lot to do with the nature of our memories, how we think about and frame who we are, where we've been, what we've done, and what's been done to us. We'll talk about that. Sixth, what constitutes a family? For some years, I taught a course called Masterpieces of World Literature. We read literature from the ancient world to the modern and across all kinds of cultures. And one of the common denominators that I noticed was a preoccupation with the idea of family. It's so important because the family is the most fundamental of all social building blocks. The other thing I noticed in teaching that course, however, is that different cultures and different time periods think about the family differently. And the books we're going to read this semester explore that question in different ways. Seventh, what constitutes legitimate authority? I guess in the most primitive societies, the person with the most authority is the person with the biggest club. And of course that remains true in modern cultures as well. Those with the most authority are those with the most capacity to impose their will on others. But that is not necessarily legitimate authority. What constitutes legitimate authority? Does it come from religion? Does it come from a social contract? Does it come from a committed love relationship? There are lots of ways to think about that, and writers and thinkers across history have explored different approaches to the question. And last but not least, to what degree does literature, or any art for that matter, reflect society and culture, and to what degree does it shape society and culture? As a humanities person, that is a question that I'm interested in. But I think that should be a question of interest for anyone. I see that this podcast is getting too long, so I won't discuss examples here, but we will come back to this question from time to time this semester. Of course, we'll talk about other things too as we go along, but these are ideas that you'll find popping up as we go through the term, and they are ideas well worth thinking about. These ideas don't just impact this course, they impact your life.